Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Young Partner Accelerator. My name is Dr. Sharon Mead Abrahams, and I'm the executive director of this fabulous program to help young partners excel in their careers. Our program is going to be October 20th and 21st at the Gleacher Center, which is part of the University of Chicago in Chicago. Look forward to having you join us. Today's interview is with Josh Driskell, who's with Lagerlof, which is a California and Washington State based law firm, and their full service firm. And Josh and I have crossed paths many times, so it's my pleasure to welcome you, Josh, to this query of what it's like to become a young partner at a firm.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Happy to contribute any way that I can.
Thank you. Well, we're just going to start right out with your firm's expectations, what you look for, and how you make a decision that somebody could make it to young partner.
Sure, absolutely. And every firm is different, right? And you can see this across different areas of the country. You can see different, even within different cities, different firms having different protocols and sort of what's expected. For our firm, it's very heavily focused on business generation, right? I think you're going to see that consistently across most firms, but business generation's huge. And also, mentorship, right? That is another big component for a partner because, being part of the partnership group means different things at different firms, but it always is going to have components of bringing work in, making sure work's getting done, educating the next generation, and having an ownership mentality around the operation of the firm itself. So I look for, especially as we're starting to bring people up in the partnership ranks, right? We're looking for people that are generally on board with where the firm's going, right? I do a lot of education, I guess you could say, around to our partners of what the vision of the firm is, where we're going, what the challenges might be, and having someone that's on board with that and can sort of get in the collective groove to communicate to staff and to other attorneys and to the outside world about what we're doing and where we're going. Super important. So that's a biggie for us.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you want people who bring in business, which I'll get to another question about that in a minute, but you want people who can, I'm going to say, manage other people. What might be some of the skills or techniques or people skills that you would like these partners to have?
Yeah, I think people skills is exactly right. That interpersonal communication. You hear about the firms that have screaming partners, and you hear about those firms that have maybe your people are setting at a firm where they're screaming partners. That's just not a recipe for success long term, right? Some firms, based on a partner's size of their book, they may sort of turn a blind eye to something like that, right? And hopefully there's less and less of those firms out there, and there's more firms that are looking at that kind of a holistic approach to the practice. And that's really us, right? We're looking at, somebody who's not just finding work, right, but minding work and making sure that things are happening, right? And our partners also grind work, right? There's certain types of work that, that are partner specific types of tasks, and it can be driven by client expectations and that kind of thing. But generally you're wanting a well-rounded person that is not someone who has an issue getting along with staff, or someone who has an issue getting along with other partners or with opposing counsel or whomever, right? Almost everybody can probably say, yeah, we're kind of in a small legal community, even with LA being a large legal group, which is where we are, Los Angeles. I run across the same attorneys a lot. I see a lot of the same people. We're in front of the same judges. It's a small legal community, no matter where you are. And your reputation will start to precede you both internally and externally. And that can either be positive or negative. And you want those interactions to be positive. No one wants to work for the partner that is a nightmare, right? You wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want to. The job is stressful enough as it is, so adding that additional stress. So we're really looking for that. And there have been people that have not elevated to partner because of that interpersonal communication. And then there are those that I feel like we've pretty successfully rehabilitated into people that do have some pretty good interpersonal skills, and it takes time, but it's a really important component.
Well, I think interpersonal skills are so important in life, right? Just generally in life and in law on the people management side, but interpersonal skills plays a lot in the business development side. So what
Mm.
are some of the things that you think a young partner should be doing in the business development realm, some which include interpersonal skills, but what are some actual things that you would say, I would expect young partners to do this, that, or the other?
Yeah. Well, there's different ways in which people bring in business, right? There's, some focus on social media and kind of go that direction. Others take a more tried and true approach to networking, going to events, joining boards, things like that. I'm proud that we have a platform that sort of supports both. We've done a really good job on the marketing side and a really good job on giving our attorneys those tools. And then we've also done a really good job of being really ingrained in the community. I would say that you need to find what works for you and what you're comfortable doing, right? Because if you, for me, for example, I am not a huge social media person, not a techie from that perspective. It's going to be hard if that's the only thing I'm trying to do, right? I tend to be more someone who will work a room, find a client, get a conversation going. That works for me. Doesn't work for everybody. Just like I wouldn't suggest that that's what someone does who's a wallflower who would not do well, right? But is an amazing, social media marketer and drives calls and contacts that way, right? So I think find what you're comfortable doing and do it consistently. One of the biggest mistakes that I see firms make, partners make, at all levels would be, they're looking for work, they're hungry for work, and they start beating the bushes and they get work, and then they stop doing that.
Mm,
And then it's like, oh, the work's all dried up, and now I have to go find clients again, and it's this cycle that repeats. You really should never stop marketing, even if you're as busy as you can possibly imagine, right? That is, if that's the case, that's great. And that means you're now at a place as a young partner to start to build your team to push work down.
mm,
If you recall when you were a young partner, when you were pre-partner, right, and coming into a law firm, someone was feeding you work, generally speaking, right? And that work, you were fed work, and then you started to, spin work off of that potentially, and then you started to get your own clients, and here you are. And if you stop and start the marketing train all the time, you're not going to develop that pipeline to send work down. And that's the book of business. That's how you hit those numbers that we kind of talked about at the beginning.
right. So let me pick up on something that you said. I love you said, that you can work a room. I've actually seen you do that. But in that aspect of working a room, are you selling Josh or are you selling your firm? Are you selling your partners? What advice would you have about if I have the skill to work a room, who am I selling or what am I selling?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends. A wise mentor of mine once said, and I sort of ascribed to it. Um, when somebody asks you what kind of lawyer are you, you respond, "What kind of lawyer do you need?" Right? Now, there's certainly expectations professionally. You can't be all things to all people. And from an attorney's perspective, a practitioner, I have several practice areas that I'm really competent in, and those are the areas I stay in. And then we have the firm, which is a more full service firm. So the answer is going to be a classic legal answer, which is it depends, right? And it depends on what you're talking about and to whom and in what context. So I tend to sort of hit multiple areas. If I'm talking to you, I meet you at an event and we talk about what I do and what you do, you're probably going to hear about my firm generally and our capabilities. You're going to hear about me and kind of what my practice area entails. And I'm going to be probably doing more question asking than speaking, hopefully, right? Because I'm trying to hear from you where the alignment is. If you're telling me, hey, I own a small business and I have these, I have 17 employees and we have a building over on Main Street. Now I'm hearing, property issues, lease issues, employment issues, general corporate transactions. This person's probably, if they own a business now, looking at an estate sort of scenario that we may get into litigation discussions. So even though it may not be my area, right? You're listening for all those different pieces. And as a young partner, there's your book of business, and then there's contributions to the firm as a whole. And you, depending on your firm and the model, it may not matter if you're doing the work or not, right? In many instances, it doesn't matter that you're doing the work. You brought the work in and you pushed it down to another group. That's a win. That's what the firm wants you to do. Not that many partners are good at that. And when I find those that are, I make sure that they stick around, right? Because someone that is a family law attorney that spins off work into our corporate transactions department and our estate planning group, or vice versa, that's great, because they're thinking thinking of the firm in a holistic manner, not just their book, their department, their group, their paycheck, right? And it ultimately rewards you twofold, because now you have work sort of feeding into all of these various funnels, and it's not up to you to do all of it. If you're bringing it in for just your group, you're probably doing a fair amount of that actual work. And this allows you to kind of kick it down to another group and get the origination credit, or however your firm's structured.
I love that you said you ask the questions, right? You've engaged this person in conversation. If you're not a big networker and working a room and you're just doing one-on-one, you still ask questions. And I think that some of the junior partners are so focused on just the work that they do that they can't sell the firm, right? They don't know what other areas the firm even has. So what advice would you give to a junior partner about learning about their firm? How would I, in an office, in your Washington office, learn what goes on in your LA office? What advice would you give me?
Yeah, and some of this will be very dependent upon your firm, but firms should be doing a really good job of educating their attorneys on the firm's capabilities. And, one of those things that, and this may be as a young partner, right, you may not have direct control over this, but I can tell you that bringing this to your firm's leadership, or your management committee, or however you're structured, will get you noticed. Because if I'm approached by a young partner, a young attorney that says, hey, I'm really focused on bringing work in, not only just for myself, but I want to make sure that the firm is thriving. What are our capabilities in Washington? What are our capabilities in LA? What are our, what does our corporate group do? That's wonderful. I love to hear that. And then I also go, oh man, we're not doing a good job of telling them what they're doing, right? It's sort of twofold. It's like, great, thank you for bringing that up. But you have to ask those questions. Everybody's busy. Everybody's running around. They're focused on their client matter, whatever fires on their desk at the moment, right? So it will take some time to understand what the capabilities are. And generally speaking, you should strive to be a connector, regardless of whether that matter stays at your firm or not. I tell this to my corporate, I oversee our firm's corporate group, and I tell them, you want to be the client's first contact, whether it's a legal matter we can handle or not, because that gives us the ability to, one, sort of shop where this goes and make sure that we're getting the client connected to the best appropriate person. It also allows us to, use our referral sources. Those that refer to us, we can refer back to them. You're right. There's hopefully a good connection there, a good relationship, so that you're continuing to kind of grow together. And ultimately, you become that person of trust, even more so for your client, right? And I get emails all the time. I don't think you guys do this, but here's my issue. And I'll tell them, no, we're not appropriate for this. This is not an area that we really are strong in. I have one attorney maybe that's done a little bit. I'm going to connect you to Sharon. Sharon's fantastic. This is all she does. She knows the business. How about I put us on an email and see if we can get a quick call? I'll join it just briefly at the beginning to make sure the handoff goes smoothly. They love it, right? You become even more fully entrenched into your client's area. And it's great. Now, practice areas are slightly different, right? If you're a family law attorney, maybe that Doesn't happen as often, but you have to be listening for the opportunities. They are 100% there. And it's asking those uncovering questions that you should be doing anyway as an attorney and a counselor, right? You're asking things. If you just wait for the client to present to you with an issue, and that's going to be not, most of the time, right? But when they present to you with an issue, you're asking those questions, you're trying to uncover pieces of this. You should be doing that all the time, right?
Yeah.
And that should be sort of innate in all of your interactions, and people will appreciate it. So that's sort of, one approach that you could take is continuing to sort of just pull back and ask those questions to try to really drive to whatever the need is.
So you mentioned two things that I want to get you to dive into a little bit more. The first one is you mentioned connections, and then you talked about referrals. So I would like for you just to address how you find referrals, how you mine your referrals, right? How do you keep those relationships going? And then you mentioned you get that random call, I know you don't do this, but, and that in my mind creates that trusted advisor. And I'd like for you to, after talk about referrals, talk to us a little bit about when you become a trusted advisor.
Yeah, that's a
Referrals
great
first.
question. Yeah, so with referrals, and I think that you're saying, how do you mine those? How do you get them? I look at every potential interaction as a potential referral source, right? And they are. You never know, right? Opposing counsel is a referral source. Judges can be referral sources. Uh, the professionals in your area, the parents at your kid's school, everyone is a potential referral source, right? And just like you are a potential referral source for whatever business they are in.
Yeah.
So it's incumbent upon you to find out, what do they do, and do they know what I do, right? And it's not puffery. It's not you trying to say I'm an attorney, I'm amazing, and all of that. It's, hey, look, I joined the profession most likely because I want to help people, right? I want to be I want to be that trusted advisor that you alluded to. And, how do I become that? Well, you become that by being that person, by actually exhibiting those behaviors. And that's going to be asking what they do and getting an understanding for it, and making sure that they know when they can call you and when they should call you. Also, attorneys are generally not trained in this, right? But a very simple sales adage is to ask for the sale, right? You don't get a sale you don't ask for generally. Be okay in asking for the sale. And as an attorney, you're going to ask for the sale in various ways. You're not just going to say, are you ready to buy my services? Not what you're going to say. It doesn't flow with the
No.
practice of law, right? But what you're going to say is, this really sounds like something that we can help you with. Are you comfortable if I go ahead and get the engagement letter out? I'll send a note to accounting and have them, get that over to you so you can take a look. That is the equivalent in professional services, right? And you should be doing that as part of that, client intake process. You're also going to do that with referral sources, but in a different way. You're going to say, look, it sounds like, Sharon, you and I have a lot of potential clients in common. We have a lot of, synergies there. I'd love to talk more with you. Can we get together? Can I shoot you a note to get on your calendar? And let me share a few projects that I'm working on that I think are analogous to what you're doing. And I'd love to hear what you're doing, because I know I have clients that can help. And then you start to build that, right? And then it's keeping updated with them. And that's a hard one, especially as you're longer in your practice. You're going to run across a lot of people that do the same things.
Yeah.
If you're an estate and trust lawyer, if you're a corporate lawyer, you're getting referrals from a lot of the same wells, right? There's a lot of CPAs that went on your radar. There's a lot of financial advisors that went on your radar. And, they'll ask for what I just told your audience to do, which is ask for the sale. And what I also will say there is, hey, I have a lot of these advisors, and there's a lot of times that a client comes to me through someone like you. So, where that happens, obviously I'm going to respect their choice. But there are times that I have the ability to kind of push a client to a specific referral source, and I'd love to put you on the list, and I'd love to see what you're doing. And I hope we can find a few of those, and we can start to really build it into something kind of thing, right? That's sort of the communication way that I sort of phrase it.
I like it.
And and you have to be in front of your referral sources. You refer to the people that either you've referred to before or who were last sort of in your face, right?
Yeah,
Because you'll forget
right.
about them otherwise. If you're really doing what we're just talking about, which is working a room, going to a party, doing whatever, um, you're going to come across a lot of the same types of individuals. And if you only have one or two accounting referrals a year, who are you likely to send it to? The
Yep.
person that you met in January that you absolutely connected with, loved, thought they were amazing, and just cannot wait to work with, right? But didn't communicate with again, ever, or even think about? Or are you going to send it to the person who you met last week who probably fits the bill okay? Well, you're going to remember the person from last week, unfortunately, right? So you have to keep in front of your people so that they remember why they want to send things to you.
Right.
It's an important piece.
Right. And everything you just said goes exactly for you as an attorney. You need to stay in front of your potential clients, your clients, so that they think about you. So it's a perfect
Yes.
tie-in. So I'd love for us to wrap up with a discussion of how you know that you're a trusted advisor for your clients. What can you share? I'm sure you're a trusted advisor for lots of clients.
Yeah, I hope so. I think so. I know so, right? You will know that when they start running other issues by you. An example would be I just wrapped up a transaction for a client that, was selling some stock and is relatively complicated and, great transaction. It closed out. And then, a week later, he emails and says, hey, I'd like to do X, Y, and Z with my estate plan. Is there someone at your firm that can help? Um, yes, right? Me. But yes, there is somebody that can help, right? And those are the types of things that you'll see, right? You'll start to see that people are reaching out to you on other unrelated matters. They're coming back to you to be a guide. Now, this person happens to be general counsel of a publicly traded company. He knows other lawyers.
Yeah.
He emailed me and asked me, is this something you can do? Can your firm do? Can you help me? Whatever. Absolutely. So I think I'm in that inner circle with him at this point, right? And
Yeah.
to stay there, I have to stay relevant. I have to communicate with him every so often. He has to hear from me. And that's not necessarily going to be a personal phone call to every single person, right? But it's going to be, how do you educate your clientele? And today it's easier than ever to give them to stay in touch, to have a newsletter, to even just shoot an email out. Hey, this is a relevant area of law for you. I think you should think about it. Hope all is well, kind of thing. It's really, really simple to do. And those you'll start to see those types of things happen where people are reaching out to you. And for me, I get referrals from people that I don't even know at this point. So that will happen also. My accountant said, I absolutely must talk to you. You're the person to handle this for me. Oh, okay. Well, who's your accountant? And I'm like, oh, great. Never heard of this person, right? Now, what I would do in that situation is find the accountant out, email them and say, hey, I heard you sent over Sharon. I really appreciate it. That's definitely in my sweet spot. I'm going to help her out. Here's what I suggested. Here's the general course of where we're going. Hopefully this is kind of aligned with what you thought. And I'd love to pick your brain about it. Do you have 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Because obviously that person has the ability to refer to me. I want to make sure that they know, why they sent it over and that I acknowledge it and all of that. So those types of things, right? You'll start to see those kind of telltale signs. And you just need to keep if you're seeing that, then it's working. You should keep doing that.
Yeah. Follow through. You followed through with that accountant. You followed up. I think all of that is so important. It's a lot of work to be a partner, isn't it?
It's a ton of work. Be careful what you wish for, right? But you're already here if you're listening to us talk, right? You've gotten what you asked for. It's a lot of work, but it's also really, really fun. And you should view it. The role is very different. It just is. When you're an associate, you are a grinder, right? If we talk about finder, minder, and grinder, you're a grinder. You're working you are learning the trade. Law is a trade. You are learning it. You are getting exposed to the various areas, and then you start to move into minding cases. Making sure that things are happening when they're supposed to happen, communicating with clients. And then as a partner, right, you're typically thrown into that finder category, but you're really all three,
Yeah.
right? And you are making sure that everything's happening the way that it should be. You probably now have responsibility for certain employees and maybe a budget, a department, whatever. Take those things seriously and really invest in the practice and your firm and your group and your people. If I were to somehow just suddenly leave here, um, I would I would take everybody that works with me, right? Because we work together as a team, as a group, and that should be how it would be for anybody, right? You have sort of your own group within a group, and that's a really important piece. And if you're all rowing in the same direction, then it's even more powerful.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's a great way to end our time together. Josh, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedule
Of course, yeah, happy to
and
do it.
chatting with me about this. Maybe you'll come back and we'll talk about some other topics. But
Yeah, anytime.
I want to remind everybody this is the piece of the Young Partner series, and the Young Partner Accelerator program is October 20th and 21st. It's going to be in Chicago. And please join us. We're going to have fabulous conversations like this, continued on a very intimate level with only 45 people in the room. So you're going to walk away with
Oh, nice.
a lot of takeaways and a lot of things. You're going to come back and hit the ground running. So thank you all very much.